Welcome to the Diary of Discovery, the podcast where we delve deep into the human experience of healing and transformation. I'm your host, Jackie Carr, and each week we will sit down with inspiring individuals who have embarked on their own personal journeys of healing and self-discovery. From overcoming trauma to navigating life's challenges, our guests share their raw and honest stories, offering insights, wisdom, and hope to all who tune in. So grab your favorite cup of tea, find a cozy spot, and join us as we uncover the power of resilience, courage, and the pursuit of authenticity. This is the Diary of Discovery. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I am super excited to welcome our next guest. As always, it really makes me happy when we have male speakers coming and speaking about their healing journeys. So without further ado, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience and let everyone know who you are and where you are in the world?
My name is Ethan A Poetic. I reside in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm a native of Coatesville, Pennsylvania. I'm a keynote speaker, self-published author. My book is called The Inspirational Story of Ethan A Poetic, Chronicles of Adversities, Education, Sports, Relationships, and Resiliency. I'm also a certified mediator, certified restorative justice in circles, and mental health advocate, two-time college graduate.
Incredible. Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. So I always like to take people right back to the start of their journey and ask them to literally take us back to like, when did your own healing start? So when did you realize something had to change? When did you realize that something wasn't right? Like what did that journey look like for you? So can you take us back to your own journey and what healing looked like?
It was a matter of just realizing, the cycle need to break. I can't repeat it. That's not how I want to be remembered. And being a victim of something is not good because you're not victimizing other people and then want to justify it. And far too often it showed up in different areas of life and it causes people's careers, legacies, reputations. Sometimes it ends up in court. And, unfortunately for some people, it's just when they don't heal themselves, it shows up in other areas of people turning to drugs, alcohol, or something else that's addictive to attempt to replace or try to falsely heal themselves. The healing journey starts with, realizing the resources are out there. Counseling, therapy, talk therapy, writing things down to really, express yourself and start letting it go. Most healing journeys involve trauma, wounds, scars, maybe something that was said, something that wasn't fulfilled in her life during her childhood, or life challenges. We have to understand that our ancestors and our elders have already experienced most of the things that we have to go on the journey to heal from. It's just our turn sometimes to experience it.
Yeah, absolutely. And was there a specific event that sort of started this process for you that made you realize? You said that like patterns being repeated, like was there a specific area where you just kept coming back to the same result and thought, I just can't do this anymore?
Well, I can go back to my childhood. We're growing up in a single parent house at 4, then I turned 5, where, that's considered a disadvantaged environment, disadvantaged household. And then school districts want to capitalize off of it by applying for state funding, federal funding to pay a teacher that specializes in it. That way they can meet their uh, school budget needs. And then as a result, they want to treat a student like a golden goose just to get work towards getting a dead end job by their 11th to 12th grade year that has a high turnover rate. And then if the man's not showing up at the parent teacher conferences or IEP meetings, that's even more incentive. And it shows that, something is not right. The school knows, the single parent mom knows. It's just sometimes a person can't be at all these places at once, or they have to compartmentalize things by the hour, half hour, by the minute, where they're going to be at in life, and which child they're going to support. And then it also comes down to certain people telling me not certain things not to do. And then there's certain men coming in my life in certain situations through sports or coaches. A few people became, father figures, surrogate fathers. They saw the void, they saw the connection. The key thing was I didn't push my help away. I embraced the help because it's something I needed, because anything could have happened. Could have turned to the streets to feel acceptance, validation. And if you get caught up in the legal system, it's too late to tell the judge your life story because they didn't heard that so many times. They want to hear the comeback stories because ultimately they have to uphold the law, protect society from those who are not making healthy choices.
Yeah, absolutely. As you were going on this journey, like you mentioned, a number of people sort of like coming into your life through sports and through schooling and stuff like that. Like, would you say that they were fundamental to you making good decisions and like staying on the right path?
Yeah, it was. Got to see men that were positive, being there for their families, people who were graduated from college twice, maybe three times, setting example, having heart to heart conversations with me when, there's times where I may have acted out. Then there's also rewards they would give me, like take me out to eat and embrace me, celebrate me. It's like, for example, when I graduated college twice, both times, my parents weren't there. And then I look back on the earlier version of myself from my childhood where I was not the healed version. When it came to my fifth grade promotion, eighth grade promotion, and graduating from high school, they weren't there for that either. And it also goes back to birthday celebrations where they didn't really celebrate me. So I realized, as life goes on, you have to really appreciate those who want to celebrate you, those who want to be present, even if it's just for the moment, a semester, a season, or for life. But it's also key to make sure you're being reciprocal and pouring into their cup as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, I think that like, especially for younger generations, that role model piece is really important. Having good behaviors and healthy ways of being and healthy ways of, dealing with your emotions and celebrating yourself and really showing up for yourself, actually having those demonstrated, I think is really, really a huge piece for the younger generations because it's not something that we are necessarily shown in the education system or in any of these like places where we're potentially supposed to. So I think that that is a really it's a really lovely thing to actually have had that in that journey. And as you were going on the journey and you were healing and sort of finding your way, were there moments where it was really hard and you weren't sure that you would make it or make the right choice or get to the place that you are now?
It was because, when it comes to healing, you start outgrowing people. And it's just, not everyone that comes with you goes with you. Not everyone wants to heal themselves. Some people just want to justify, being hurt, being victimized, and not do the work. And, not everyone's timing is your timing. And what I mean by that is not everyone's going to heal at the same time as you. Not everyone's going to put in the same work as you. And you have to understand that it's not so much leaving behind, it's just you have a purpose and you have to keep moving forward, or else you might miss that window of opportunity. Then you got to take several steps back to do it all over again. I've seen some people relapse on drugs and alcohol. Then it's time to go back to the AA meetings, check back into rehab long term for 6 to 9 months, rebuild those relationships. It could be something as, somebody allowing their job to consume them and not take care of other areas of life. Well, you have to be willing to do the work because no one can do it for you. A person can give you the master plan and the blueprint, but if you're not following it, something's not adding up.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that whole piece of like doing the work is so instrumental to the process of healing. Like you can't just say you want to heal or just read about it or um sort of sit on the sidelines when it comes to this sort of stuff. Like there has to be an element of you actually taking action and doing something and stepping into that kind of like next version of yourself. I think there's so much in that space of it is really hard, but majority of the time it's really worth it as well. Like the life that you get to live on the other side of healing, the life that you get to experience and the person that you get to become, the people you get to surround yourself with, like it's all completely different. But I do think that a lot of people stay in the trauma for longer than they should because of those relationships that they know are going to break down, because of those relationships and those people that they might have to leave behind as they kind of go through and do that healing journey. So I think that that is, it's always something for people to just think about as they go through. Like, not everyone is meant to be in your life forever. Some people are only supposed to be in for a short period of time. So I guess there's a real message in going on this journey and knowing that as you grow, you'll create new groups of people around you. Like, I think the hardest bit, and I don't know if you experienced this as you were going through your own healing journey, but the hardest bit is almost like that bit in the middle where you haven't quite found the new people yet, but you're outgrowing the people that you were with before. And there feels like there's like this gap where you're going to be alone forever. Did you experience that at all?
No, I didn't. Part of the process is, making room for new people.
Mm.
It happens. It's like, I went through a transition of going from living in Coatesville, Pennsylvania, projected to be play football, basketball, track, and wrestling to moving to Lancaster and starting all over. And that was a big transition because I didn't want to leave because to give up all livelihood, be away from my childhood friends, growing apart from those people and only able to just see very few. And there was no social media back then where we could say, hey, let's just video chat. Let's keep in contact on there. No, you had to see someone in person or have their number or mailing address to stay in contact. And, sports helped out with the journey, the transition, as did the coaches, because it just wasn't, it was just so surreal to me that I'm not walking the stage for my eighth grade promotion with my childhood friends. And it was just, I look in the crowd and it's like not one family member there. And that was just an example of seeing other people with their family members there. And I could say it was similar to fifth grade, but I was actually living in Coatesville. There was family in the crowd, such as my cousin and her the same age, just 2 months apart. Her mom and dad were there in the crowd. When I came to high school, we went to different high schools. And, our journeys were different. But, when I graduated from college twice, very similar. The only difference is my father figure was there at Millsville University. Jordan Steffi was there at Millsville University on a sunny day. Comes the hat. Jordan Steffi, George Veronis, and a few other people were there. And, I don't have to relive that void anymore. I learned that, life does happen and you can't make someone be there for you. They have to be willing to be there for you, be present, and not tell you excuses or explanation. It's not like something catastrophic happened. That'd be one thing. But if someone's trying to excuse their behavior on not doing right by you, then, something's not right. Those are red flags. And eventually you have to want to stand up for yourself and ask yourself, why are you even allowing that type of influence in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that like this whole process of healing is exactly that, isn't it? It's about that surrounding yourself with people that are going to make your life better, that are going to like contribute in a good way so that you can actually achieve and live the life that you're here for and live the life that you're meant to live. Like it's yeah, it's such a challenging process going through and thinking about like each of those different stages and seeing the same pattern play out in each of those different stages until more recently in the or like more like later on in that in the college experience where actually you got to see a different version of what that could look like. And did that change your outlook on how life is and what life can be? Did that like shift? What was like the big shifts for you in what you believed?
It was just learning to accept things for what it is. I got used to being in a new environment in Lancaster. People start welcoming me with open arms, start connecting with people through sports and people in the community here in Lancaster. Then when I go back to Coatesville for a visit, it's that home feeling of feeling homesick of, hey, I want to come back here. And, the other journey, not seeing my dad that often, but I realized he was already doing favoritism with my younger sibling. There was a time of a jealousy moment where I talk about in my book where, when I was a child, for Christmas, he gave me a bike, but it had to be assembled, created with tools. But when it came to my younger brother, he got a quad motorcycle and he wasn't able to drive it. But then when it came to my older brother, there was some jealousy in him because people were asking, how can our dad buy someone a quad motorcycle who's barely 4 years old, yet won't even help you get your driver's license?
Mm.
And you're his firstborn. And, you know, I felt a certain type of way during that moment. There was a talk with my dad with a certain guy who was his father-in-law. But as time went on in life, the jealousy stopped because I realized it wasn't my younger brother's fault. He's innocent. It was my dad's fault because he's the guy who's not contributing to our lives the right way. But I also realized from my dad's perspective, he was just trying to make up things by overdoing
Mm.
doing things in the wrong way for one child while abandoning the other children that were born way before this new guy came into the world. That's one example. Then another example could be with my mom of just choosing the wrong man to be with and spending so much time with him that I'm being neglected and we're living in the same household together. And then, when he goes on those drug and alcohol binges, it's kind of like this quote I learned, puppy syndrome. You see somebody you want to fix up and take credit for it. And that's what happened there, but it comes at a cost of neglecting your children. You're allowing your children to be exposed to someone who's not being a positive example, contributor. And, that comes at a crossroad where, when you start seeing that type of stuff, do you want to do that type of stuff or not? And unfortunately, my three brothers that were living with me end up following that same path and end up getting caught up in mass incarceration. And my mom was on the other end of the phone lines of receiving the phone calls. And no father, none of our fathers were there to, step up. And it's just a reality of, somebody cannot look innocent for being a single parent. Because as a quote I learned, sometimes a man is what his mom make him. Because when a woman gives birth to her children, she's the heart of her children. And if she's not on her own healing journey, uh, the children are not going to be on their own healing journey. And if they are, it becomes friction in the relationship because life happens. And part of that journey for me was I was healing, and this was without my parents and without my siblings involved. And as you heal, you start speaking differently, talking differently, living differently. And you can know people for several years, but they're not going to understand you because they're not going to be able to relate to you as much, besides living in the same household or being related. A relationship is more than just that. Are we growing in certain areas together or we're growing in certain areas apart? And, there's times where I have to tell a certain individual, hey, if you're inviting certain people to your house or gathering, I can't be near them because I know the type of behavior they're going to get into. Because I got to protect my peace, my legacy, and purpose in life. So I have a lot more to lose than to gain. Why not be the bigger person and staying away from that stuff instead of being the bigger person showing up for somebody who doesn't value me?
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like this is sort of where the work came from, becoming a speaker, becoming an author, stepping into this role that you're in now, where you're speaking and writing about these stories. Was that sort of like a natural part of the process for you, or how did you go from healing, finishing college, and then stepping into the work that you do now?
I go back on my life with that IEP plan and parent teacher conferences in two different school district, coastal areas, school district and the school district Lancaster. There was no plan of me further my education, being an author, or being where I'm at in life. As I said before, it's just treat me like a golden goose, just to end up, doing the same thing my older brother did, who also may have had an IEP plan. He ended up working in a fast food restaurant, which was, McDonald's, Burger King. I ended up working in the fast food industry. First time it was at Arby's. Then I transitioned over to Ruby Tuesday, and then I stopped doing it and did other things. It just shows the pathology I repeated without actually fully becoming aware of it. Then there's also the situation of just being around people that believed in me.
Mm.
Because sometimes in life you do have to go against the system that's not always designed in certain people's favor. As part of the Tyler Prep program, the CEO is actually former CEO, but now he's just the founder and board member. His name is Jordan Steffi. Then there's his wife, Keandra Bear, Steffi. it was just an emphasis of I saw it as the opportunity of giving my second chance to further my education on a higher level. It's like basically I was supposed to do it after high school and be that student athlete, but unfortunately, the certain choices my mom was making, my dad was making, it just didn't happen. I only played sports my in high school my freshman year. I didn't have that national signing day and all these awards and accolades, and it's like an opportunity where the window opened up for me again. And I went to college in a situation where I was working 1 to 2 jobs continuously, going to college continuously every semester without an academic scholarship or athletic scholarship. It was relying on the Pell Grants, VIA grants, learning that my ID has a library ID number on it, and I could look up these books online to the library database and get them as a loaner at no charge. I remember the times of taking the bus over to college and eventually driving to college in a car. What I can tell you is that the vision board of that IEP plan and the parent teacher conferences, I exceeded it. Those educators have to really eat the words and really look at the situation as where did they go wrong? Because what I did was, pretty much outsmart the system by being around people who cared about me generally. And it did not involve my parents. And that's the honest truth because you can't heal from something that some people don't want to take part in the process of. Because when you take away excuse, enablers, or those who are oppressors, now you have no barriers and less life challenges. Now it's on you on an individual level to do the work, and I did the work. When I graduated from college the first time, it was fun. It was exciting. I was the first in my family, as far as all the men. When it comes to my grandma, who was alive at the time, first boy as a man. Then the second time I graduated, first all over again, a man of my generation. Then I started receiving all these awards and accolades, television stories, podcast interviews like this one, newspapers, newsletters, a magazine. It was just it was worth it because when you heal yourself, you get rewarded. It's like this quote I remember: "I'll give you beauty for your ashes." And my ashes were, that certain trauma, wounds, scars, turn it around. But in order for me to be great, I have to come back and show other people how I did it so that they become the healed version of themselves, so that they can be a college graduate, a self published author, a person who gets recognized for what they overcome, turn their disadvantages to their advantages. There's times I see kids that are similar to me. There's times I had conversation with single moms and tell them, "Oh, I used to be in that walker, bassinet, car seat as a child, and I can tell you, you're gonna make it. It's a matter of what do you want to do to make it." It's like this story I tell people all the time. There's this woman whose name, the late Dr. Rita Smith Waddell. She was married. She had her children. Unfortunately, the marriage did not work out. And, her son always tells this story where she was down to her last dollars and she saw this homeless person on the streets as she was driving. And she gave that person that money. That was the last bit of everything. The reason why she gave it to him because she realized that person didn't have much of a support system. Meanwhile, she does have a support system to get back on her feet. And she ended up becoming a college professor. There's times where she took her children with her while she did her lectures in the classroom. There's times she took her children with her in board meetings. And there's times where she sent her children to boarding schools, and then she went from being a single parent to a college graduate with a doctorate degree. So therefore, she can speak on that journey of being a single parent. She can speak on that journey of if somebody wanted to get in contact with her, it had to be in person or write her a letter because she didn't have no television, no telephone. She took away all distractions, all barriers, because she didn't want to make an excuse and want this to be the end all for her children. You know, some people may say her children are living off her name, but the reality is that her children, who are adults, do their own work as well, of overcoming a father no longer in the household, furthering their education, and breaking barriers for other people. You know, some people may hate you on your healing journey, but it goes to show that they acknowledge that you're not the same person you once were.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this idea, and I like you have come back to it a couple of times around this like role model idea of you have to have gone through something in order to speak on it. And it's so vital for the junior version of you to actually see you having come through the other side, having had that success, having gotten to the end of, you know, a good outcome. Because I think that that's a really, really big thing for people when they're going through a healing journey. It can feel difficult when there's nobody that looks like them who's got the result that they want. There's nobody who's gone through the same thing or is getting a similar like result that they want. So I think it's really inspirational for children who have come through a similar life path to you to be able to actually look back at that and say, actually, this is an example of somebody who's got the result that I want, who is showing me the path that I can take, is showing me that it's possible. I think that that's really, really beautiful. And I always like to ask people, like, what would your advice be for people who are coming into the space of healing, who are trying to sort of like start this journey? What would your advice be for people who are going through that at the moment?
For those who on drugs or alcohol, they have to get tired of sick and tired of being sick and tired. They got to cut certain choices off. They have to cut it off the menu. Those who are participating in that stuff, you gotta get away from them, or else you'll relapse. In my journey, for example, there's times where I have to get away from certain people because certain people want to bring up, oh, I have a strange relation with my mom, I have a strange relation with my dad. And okay, I understand that, but why are we talking about a past tense thing when I'm focusing on a present tense thing and future things? It's just some people don't want to give up the idea of he's going on without him and that he's still evolving. Some people still want to look at you as the unhealed version of yourself instead of the healed version. Kind of like the crab barrel effect, where they want to pull you back into the crab barrel when the reality is that you're supposed to be out in the ocean and live your life. As with my situation, I have to live my life. If I'm not, I'm allowing the people who don't value me to subtract value and cause division. And that's not, by design. It's just unfortunately some people just want to hold you back. But when you speak in protective words, speak up for yourself, and tell them what your boundaries are, they gotta respect it because ultimately nobody knows what you're going through better than how you're going through because you have the emotions. And there are people willing to help you. You have to be willing to get that. Not only do you want to accept the help, but follow through on the help on a step by step basis. You can look at the people who show up on Dr. Phil's show, where they speak their life story, they go through the airing out grievances, and eventually he's going to offer that support, offer the guidance, offer the resources. But he also has boundaries that if you keep relapsing or keep acting up, he's going to draw a line and say, if this happens again, we're pumping the brakes and we're leaving. There's times where, for me, I never imagined, I would be doing things better without my parents than with them. But I realized my story relates to those who, may have read the book and the movies, such as Homeless to Harvard. There's a homeless child tested into an Ivy League school and got accepted. Then there's the Michael Orr story, where, a family saw greatness in him and took him in, helped him get into his private school, which ended up leading to him playing football, getting Division I offers, and signing an letter of intent to Ole Miss. Then he became a multimillionaire, being drafted by the Baltimore Ravens. Then there's also The Pursuit of Happiness, where this guy's wife left him and his child. But he still had a vision that he'll get out of the situation after being in homeless shelters, sleeping on the streets, sleeping in bathrooms and locking up the doors. And one day experienced a breakthrough when his project sold. And now he not only lives to talk about it, he has a movie to talk about it. And when I say all those things is that there are people who've been through stuff, hit rock bottom, hit the cement. And there's also been people who have, climbed the top of the mountain just to go down and climb the next one. And there's some people who have fallen from grace because they were not the healed version of themselves. I can tell you an example of a guy who was a pastor, had an Omega church, had a wife, a few kids, had the palm of the world in his hands. But there were certain areas where here he is ministering to other people at the pulpit, but he wasn't allowing himself to be ministered to with certain things in his life. And it starts showing up little by little until, boom, it got exposed. And it got to the point where he had to resign as a minister. He had to leave the church to focus on himself on an individual level. His wife was embarrassed. She had to do the work on herself because she could have been an enabler. Children had to experience the situation, even though it wasn't their fault. But eventually, that same minister, that same family did go on their healing journey and do the work, individual level, and as a family unit, and end up becoming a better version of themselves and reclaiming certain things that were once, taken away from them as a privilege, not a right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so many incredible like stories that we can look at, and it gives so much hope in the space of healing when you actually see people go through and go on the journey and show up in the way that they're showing up. And one thing I always like to ask as our sort of like final question on the podcast is this idea of like, what's your next level of healing? What's your next focus? What are you working on to really help better yourself and people around you?
I'm working on my second book. It's called The Inspirational Story of Ethan A Poetic, Part 2, Chronicles of Adversities, Education, Sports, Relationships, and Resiliency, where I talk about certain moments in my life of healing and involves, confronting a man who caused, great destruction as long as my mom did. I realize when a woman doesn't properly vent a man with her father, brothers, uncles, or community leaders, in this situation, and I'm just telling you as a snippet, as a sneak peek, my mom ended up repeating the same cycle as their moms. My father's mom and my brother's father's mom of having multiple children with multiple men. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. And, there was a certain situation that, where she had, already me and my older brother, two men, two boys. Then she has two more boys by another man. And then a certain situation involves a police report, medical records, and make television, radio, podcast. And I got the original records to that situation, or that journey was, I always had the suppressed memory of, the cops being in the house and wonder what happened. Then one moment later, I wake up at somebody else's house. Eventually, I did confront that person who caused it, and he didn't want to have that conversation with me in person. So what I ended up doing was I wrote him a certified and notarized letter, and he wasn't happy about me airing out my grievances and calling him out as a man. But jokingly now he's scared of me, and I don't even have the iron fist from the Avengers. And that's part of the journey, confronting the people who are responsible for certain things in life. And because of that situation that happened, I'm not going to tell you everything, it incentivized the school to label a household disadvantaged and disfranchised to their advantage. Because if they really cared as a school, they would be providing mentorship for the mom, providing more resources. Therefore, the cycle gets broken, not continued and stretched out for another 18 plus years. And, I can't afford to allow, the day I had children to live like that, or else I'm going to be remembered for doing the same thing. Also, the other journey of, me being a certified restorative justice and circles facilitator is I can work in the schools, juvenile facilities, and get value for doing that, or do these practices with a talking piece. We all have a speaking situation to talk about, hot topics, and start understanding that our voice truly matters. Then the other journey is, realizing I can travel further away because there's more lives to impact. But it's a matter of, making sure that it's the right fit. But ultimately for serious inquiries for me, speaking at your school, whether it be as a keynote speaker, mental health advocate, certified restorative justice and facilitator, my website is ethanspeaks.com. Serious inquiries, I value my services, and that's where I'm at right now. But you never know what's else going to be something for me to work on.
Incredible. Oh my gosh, it's been so amazing to have you on the podcast and to have you share your own like personal experiences. We always link to Instagrams and stuff like that. So we will have the links below so people can reach out and obviously come and engage with the books and engage with the speaking and the work that you're doing. I think that that's really, really incredible. And thank you so much for giving your time today and just, taking this moment to share your own experience. It's been wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to another inspiring episode of The Diary of Discovery. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends, family, or anyone else you think might benefit from the stories of hope and transformation. Your feedback means the absolute world to us, so please take a moment to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help us to reach even more listeners and continue to bring this meaningful content to the world. Until next time, remember, your healing journey is valid. You are never alone, and you have the strength to get through this. Keep shining bright, and we'll see you in the next episode of The Diary of Discovery.